beginner. All my good works are needles in hay, and I try to do right based on my own sight, just like a blind man who's standing in the way. And all that I've taken, it was sadly mistaken. To bleed for my own, for my sake. Now everything I have was stolen or borrowed. All that I've taken is much more than I can take. I was a fool in the quickness of the sand. I was a leper trying to save my own skin, but now I'm a man who knows where I stand on the rock of ages. That's where I stand. Lord, you bore my refuse. You are my refuge. You gave up everything when you threw it all away. You gave me life new. You carried my weight through the evening to the morning and to the day. I was a fool in the quickness of the sand. I was a leper trying to save my own skin, but now I'm a man who knows where I stand on the rock of ages. Jesus, that's where I stand. On the rock of ages, Jesus, that's where I stand.
This time we're going to start with the audio differently. we're going to say welcome to Calvary Chapel Greenville, Texas. We're excited to be here, all that stuff. Why, oh, why? Oh. Well, here's the thing. I tell people, hey, you know what? When it's church time, it's church time. And the funniest part about it is I get, and they're not watching, so I can say whatever I want to, right? But I get text messages from people who are church people during church. It's like maybe their church doesn't do Wednesday night. That's fine. No bother to me. It all works out. Hey, guys, we got things coming up. Whoo, doggy. So, Tuesday nights is women's, whatchamacallit. And that's, are you still, guys are like one more week without? So you're on like a little summer vacation. There we go. So should start back up next week, but we'll find out. No, not next week, the week after next week. Come back in August. You're killing me. All right. Anyways, so that's going to be pushed back a little bit. We're excited to, whenever that does come back into play. But until then, stay home and read or something like that. I'll tell my wife stuff about Bible that night. She'll appreciate that. Wednesday nights, we're going through the book of Job. She's laughing just a little bit, not enough. Anyways, we're going through the book of Job on Wednesday night, and that's where we are today. So I forgot what I put the title for tonight was, something along the lines of Phase 1, the Friends of Job, Phase 1, because we're going to see a little bit of that there tonight. One friend talking, him talking. Hey, the first Wednesday coming up will be Don. He normally covers something interesting there. We'll see what he has to offer. And then on the communion thing there, that's August 7th. So that's all at that time in that far, far deep away. Men's prayer Friday mornings at 6 a.m. But hey, you know what? Not this Friday. And not the Friday following. So the two were on a kind of a vacation for the men's prayer too, as it turns out. Todd, I want to just let you know right now so you don't show up, right? He said, all right. So we're going to take a small vacation on the men's prayer, and that'll work out really well. Hey, men's breakfast, we're not taking a break on that one. July 27th. Whew, that's down the road a little bit. So July 27th will be the next one on that. Otherwise, Sunday mornings, we're in 2 Peter. And we got just one more chapter left of that. Of course, this coming Sunday will be a little bit different, but after that, it will be rocking on. One thing that you'll notice did not come up there, and that is the August fellowship meal. And because it doesn't exist at this point. Just some logistical things. We need to have a summer vacation from our fellowship meal, same as we do in January. Sorry, we're tired of all this eating, man. Like, I'm eating so much, I'm fat, right? So we're not going to do that this time around. That's it. Anyways, so that's just little things that are coming over right there. Because I know some people are like, well, man, aren't you guys doing that? Not right now. Long story. Don't have the explanation for it. Are we excited? Hey, let's get into the book of Job. This is going to be kind of a longer shot because it's 4 chapters we're going to blow through tonight. What we understand is Job has gone through some really, really bad things. Job has had a bad time. Job has had a difficult time. And for Job, I'm telling you right now, he's gone through everything that you don't want to go through. Well, the question is, what did Job do wrong? What sin did Job commit? Well, I've clarified something, and I've said this. This is not the reason it's happening, although secondarily it could be. Job has something of a pride issue. But the pride issue has nothing to do with everything else that we're going to read today. Zero, okay? The thing that Job is really actively trying to serve God, but he's trying to serve God in his own power to a certain level. He understands that God's in control. He understands that to God be the glory, all those things. However, he thinks under his ability, he can do these things, further his level with God, do kind of the good things that he ought to do. Well, it doesn't always work that way. So as we look at today, we're going to see some interesting things. Eliphaz, the Temanite, will be the one who speaks to Job tonight. And I said this before, we're going to break this up into conversations. This guy says what he says, Job responds how he responds, and then we'll go to the next conversation. And the reason I want to do that way is because it really puts it into a proper context. Not that we're trying to rush through, although we're going to be rushing through some passage tonight, but we're not really trying to rush through for the purpose of just, killing time or making sure we get through it, but because, what's wrong? You're knocking? Oh, yeah, there's people working on the roof. Go see if you got some visitors, but probably not. Yeah, I had to wait for somebody to clear out of the parking lot so I could pull in. They were running wires and stuff. So that was kind of fun. Anyways, Job has had one bad time. But his friends make it worse. Hate to say this, we all have friends. And if we don't, well, this doesn't apply to you. But for those of us who do have friends, many, many times something will happen and they give us advice. The bad part about that advice, it tends to be bad. Hey, this bad thing happened. Let me tell you how to fix it. You know what? Just let's be quiet, right? Because you don't know. You don't know all the details. You may have been a friend to somebody in that way at some point in time. You say, have you been there before? Given bad advice? Yeah, absolutely. I've been given bad advice, and I have given bad advice. And when somebody tells me this is what's going on, what do we tend to do? I got this one solved for you, man. I know how to fix this. I am Mr. Fix-It. I can fix stuff. Even when nobody wants it fixed. Even when nobody asked for it to be fixed, I can fix it. I understand Job's friends. I understand them at a level that I probably shouldn't. But I also understand Job's perspective because I've been given the bad advice. For Job, man, this is just torture. Everything's gone bad, and so what do we need that's actually worse? Well, nothing. But what does he get? He gets friends. They mean well, but they don't understand the situation. And so to kind of put this into context, the next period of time that we go through the book of Job is filled with people who really don't understand what they're saying. They don't understand the situation. And I know that we've been through those situations before. I'm learning, in a ripe old age finally, but I am learning to ask more questions than to give answers. And the reason that that's important, and I think this is a lesson that we could all have, is if we'll simply ask questions, maybe we can understand more of the situation. And until we do understand more of the situation, be quiet. Sometimes we've asked all these questions, got all these answers, and we still don't really know what to do, but that's okay. I can wing it, right? Fake it till you make it. I know everything here. We can make this work. That is Job's friends. Did it spill? Pick it up. That is Job's friends. Job's friends are amazing. They're the worst amazing, but they're amazing nonetheless. And they don't think, let me say it that way, and very nicely if I can, but they don't think, and they're not thinking godly. One last thing that I'll push on us so we can think about this too. If you don't specifically know the character and nature of God from Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22:21, it's best not to presume what God would say, do, or know. But we do that. Oh, God would hate these people. What was those people from Kentucky? The weird, they were Baptist by name, but they weren't really, and they protested funerals and all that stuff. Remember those guys? What were they? Yeah, whatever it was they were. They weren't like properly a church, and they definitely weren't serving Jesus when they did this. But they'd have all these signs out that God hates, and then whatever your sin is, they'd throw that part in there because it wasn't isolated to one thing or the other. God hated everything according to their signs. They did that too. God hates war and stuff. Yeah, so they did everything: veterans' funerals, pride parades, all that stuff. I mean, that's probably not the right way to handle things. If you think that God would like to correct these situations, there's probably a different way to do that. But what they did was they went out there and they presumed to speak for God, and they were wrong. Let me say this. When we do this, because you're going to do this, when we do this, you're not making God happy here, right? Because it's like, well, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I said. That's not how, So we do what? Westboro Baptist. So we need to be careful not to just really give what God would have done. With that said, I think we are all in a pretty good, comfortable place right now. And one last thing, but we're going to cover this here in just a second. We don't know why God does what he does. No clue why God does or has a timeline that he has. No clue. But when we get to the backside of the event, we say, ooh, that makes a lot more sense now. Because God can see everything, we can't. He knows the hearts and the minds of the people that we're going to deal with. He can change those people's hearts in a heartbeat, make everything different. So, again, we yield to God, and God's the one in control, God's the one with power. So let's crack in now to Job chapter 4. And we're going to go inductive style through here. Again, these are 4 chapters for this particular time, and we're going to be moving through these. So bear with, follow along. There's a lot of words. Ready? Job chapter 4 and verse 1 says, Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, If one ventures a word with you, will you be impatient? Yet who can keep from speaking? Behold, you have instructed many, and you have strengthened the weak hands. Your words have upheld him who was stumbling, and you have made firm the feeble knees. But now it has come to you, and you are impatient. It touches you, and you are dismayed. Is not your fear of God, your confidence, and the integrity of your ways of your hope? Remember, who that was innocent ever perished? Or were their upright cut off? As I have seen those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they are consumed. The roar of the lion, the voice of the fierce lion, the teeth of the young lions are broken. The strong lion perishes for a lack of prey, and the cubs of the lioness are scattered. So just at the very beginning, the very onset, he's really pushing things and making them go different and weird. And he's kind of punchy about the things he's saying. You know, you think you were over here supporting everybody, but now, buddy, it's your turn. And you are impatient. Basically, he's just calling him out on the carpet for going through a bad time. Does Job have the right to be a little dismayed right now? Oh, 100%. Everything except his wife that he had is now gone. Gone. And as he kind of comes through this part, there are a lot of questions anyone would have. He was wise in the early part when he said, you know, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away, blessed be the name of the Lord. So he has kind of the right mindset and the framework to work with, but they're just really throwing this out. But notice our buddy Eliphaz here, as he begins the accusations, he basically says, Job, you messed up. God wouldn't be doing these things. And you'll see he kind of confirms that as he goes along. But Job, you've really messed up, and God's coming after you, man. And now you're the one, you know, and it's not really a ha-ha moment, but he's kind of got that attitude like, well, you know what? You had it coming. Did Job have it coming? We make that argument some other time. I don't think it's fair to put it here anyways. Job wanted to serve God. Did he do it exactly the right way? Maybe not. But what we're going to find later on when we get into the later portion of the book of Job is God basically tells him, don't listen to those idiots in a roundabout way, okay? Those friends of yours, they ain't friends. They're telling you things. You know, who listens to that counsel? Basically is kind of the what will be laid out there. And so the very first part, Eliphaz, as he's giving his counsel, so to speak, he is basically blaming, shaming, and doing all these things against Job. And from a theological standpoint, that's a dangerous place to stand. Years ago, we were in a church in Arkansas, and loving as those people were, one of the guys in that church, he made a statement, and I'm telling you right now, that statement was sinful. A young lady got cancer. When I say young lady, I'm talking prepubescent. Young lady, and if she got like cervical cancer or something, she got like reproductive cancer. Ovarian. Surgeries, chemos, all the different things happen, all that stuff. Make a long story short, she didn't make it to an adult. But at the very first onset of that, she got really bad sick, and her mother also got sick. And we were in church, and that guy was standing really close to me, and he said, I wonder what they did sin-wise. And I was like, man, and this guy was supposed to be the associate pastor of the church at the time. Forget his name now. I can't remember it anyways, it doesn't matter. I mean, I got along with this guy. I sat at his house, we talked, and I mean, he's one of the ones, as I began to get in the ministry, he was really there with me. But then when he said that, it just tore me up because I knew better. What did they do against God? I don't think that's a fair question there, is it? What did this young lady do? How did she sin against God? Well, she sinned from day one, but she didn't sin any differently than most normal people do, and God didn't cast them out. So it's like, you can't just always ascribe some kind of level of sin or some bad thing that happened to how God responds to, or how people are going through something. And to give you a more biblical, firm foundation on that one, I would take you to John chapter 9, verses 1 through 3, and listen to this. Talking about the situation where this guy's blind on it. So as he passed, Jesus, he saw a blind man from birth, and his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, it was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. If you think about that in the perspective of Job, why did these things happen to Job? That God may shine his light through the life of Job. And now, thousands of years later, we still talk about this very thing. We still talk about the situation that happened. Was Job somehow amazingly cool, weird? Listen, Job loved Jesus. He loved God. He was all about that. But you know what? God did something through him. Now, the correction that he was given, and let's frame it like this. Job's problems, or the things that he failed or did wrong against God, were so minuscule that most of us would think he was so holy we couldn't talk to him. That's his level of infraction. It was not hardly even there. He's doing it himself. Yeah, that's kind of a problem, but it really wasn't there. And what God's going to do through Job has affected us today. Now, we want to hear Eliphaz continue. We still got a chapter and a half of Eliphaz just really coming down and raining down the terror of nonsense on old Job. So let's go back to chapter 4, verse 12. It says, now a word was brought to me stealthily. My ear received the whisper of it, amid thoughts from villains of the night. When deep sleep falls on men, dread came upon me, and trembling, which made all my bones shake. A spirit glided past my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was silence. Then I heard a voice. Can mortal man be in the right before God? Can a man be pure before his Maker? Even in his servants he puts no trust, and his angels he charges with error. How much more those who dwell in the houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, who are crushed like the moth. Between morning and evening they are beaten to pieces. They perish forever without anyone regarding it. Is not their tent cord plucked up within them? Do they not die? And that without wisdom? And so we have again Sir Eliphaz. We're just giving him a nice royal name from England. Mr. Eliphaz just is, I'm telling you right now, going for the gut. He had a vision, he heard from something. Did he have a gas bubble? Maybe. Was he hearing from God? Here's the interesting side to that. Maybe he was. Okay, let's think about this for just a second. Was that vision, dream, or whatever it was, if it was from God, was it directed to Job? No. It was directed to Eliphaz. And so he might be kind of telling on himself, Oh, well, you think you got this figured out kind of a mindset? And if you think about it, it's actually biblically true, but wrongly applied. Can something be biblically true and wrongly applied? 100%. Oh, yes, and yes, some more. So let me ask this really awesome question. Can a mortal man be in the right before God? The easy answer is not by his own merit. So then what could put somebody right before God? That's the blood of Christ. That's it. The blood of Christ is the only thing that makes you right. Because then we call that sanctification, set apart. You are now justified by the blood of Christ because you are a sinner and you're condemned to hell. But because of the actions of Christ, the sacrifice on the cross and so on, then we get to the point where now that's the place where you can stand before God. And it's not by the man's ability. So is this a correct statement? And the answer is yes. Can a man be pure before his maker? No, except Jesus. They didn't have that revelation at that time. And so while this is biblically true, it's applicationally wrong. If this information was given to Eliphaz, if Eliphaz was dealing with something, God came to him and dealing with him directly, specifically, then we like to apply the things that happen to us to others, but you can't always do that. You know what's interesting, and we've talked about this before, if we start a ministry in this church, like at one point we're talking about doing a one-step program, and this has been years ago now. Can I run a one-step program? Well, let's ask the question now. Who in here has no idea what a one-step program is? That would be everyone. So there's a guy named Bill W. You know who Bill W. is? I saw him on the bumper sticker on the back of my grandfather's car. He is Mr. 12-stepping kind of guy, apparently. So there's this 12-step program. Not to say it's a bad thing. You're supposed to have a higher power, all these different things that work like that. And I don't know who came up with it, but I know Calvary in Costa Mesa had this years and years and years ago. But it was called one step. They said 12 steps is way too many. It's just Jesus. And I've heard that from other people who are believers who didn't go through the same program. So basically, understand this. If you are in addiction and all that, the easy one-step program is Jesus. Say, well, what if, okay, that's fine. You deconstruct it inside of you're serving Jesus. You have to come to Jesus, and there's a lot of things. And we can be addicted to everything, as it turns out. But I have to give it up, and you can only give it up through the power of Christ. That's it. 12 steps might be fine, but it takes you 11 steps too many. We need to get directly to Jesus, and that's kind of the mindset. So with that said, you can't do things without Christ. You can't just think that you're going to do this. And so he's kind of right in that respect, but what we do know, I'm sorry, I'll go back to where I was a second ago. I guess you could say I've actually had addiction, if you will, with cigarettes and stuff years ago. Caffeine, to a certain level of sugars, right? Huh? No, that wasn't very long-lived. I was not considered an alcoholic. I was a binge drinker, according to the Army. So, I know. Little old me, perfect me, I know. All that was stripped away piece by piece as Jesus entered into my life. Okay? That's just how it happened. But I don't have the struggles of addiction because, and my wife hates this about me, like one of the things she actually hates about me is it's time to stop something. Okay, done. So I don't have it in the back of my brain. It's not living as a crutch the same way it does with other people, and that's okay. God made me that way, and it's it's good and it's bad, man. It's got the good days and the bad days. But if I decide that ain't going to happen, that ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen anymore. It just isn't. I can't lead the one-step program because I don't have that place of understanding. I can't relate to the people, right? And so we had somebody say, well, I can relate. And it's okay, well, let's talk about that. We never launched it, but you have to be able to relate to somebody to really kind of understand. What's the old saying? If trying to understand somebody's perspective, walk a mile in their shoes, right? And then you're good to go because you're a mile away from them and you have their shoes, so you can do whatever you want to at that point. But you have to understand from people's perspective the things that are going on. I'm going to submit to you right now that Eliphaz had no clue what was going on with Job. He'd never been through exactly. And I would say this for this reason. Eliphaz was not somebody who was serving God in the way that Job was. Job had a heart for God, and Eliphaz was more critical about the things that Job did. Oh, you're Mr. Holy and High Mighty and stuff. What does that tell me when I see that? That tells me that Job is a character, and the person inside of that community was there for people when they were in hard times. That's what that tells me. Eliphaz is not the same guy. Oh, you Mr. Compassionate dude, huh? That's happened to you. And I've had people say kind of similar things to me. I fired this guy years ago. And back, I was working in the cable company, and I fired this guy. And it was a valid fire. It should have happened probably earlier than I did it. And I'd forgotten all about this guy completely. He'd never forgot about me, as it turns out. I'm sitting in Taco Bueno in South Little Rock, because that's what holy people do. And we would avoid the ones local. But anyways, I'm sitting in that and eating my little beans or whatever it was that I would eat. And I don't remember what I ate there, but that's okay. But this guy, I'm like, man, this dude looks familiar. Looks familiar. It's just like, but I couldn't really get out of my head. I'm like, where do I know this guy from? And then he walks up and he says, and he starts just talking trash to me. I'm like, I remember him now. And I was dropped from a contract because I did the right thing, which is a really bizarre story. But it was necessary for me to move. And it was God moving me, but it just didn't feel like God moving me at the time. But I got removed from that contract, and so he came up to gloat because, you got fired. I'm like, actually, I didn't get fired. When I came off that contract, I had other jobs that I was still doing for the same company. I never got fired. I ended up quitting because the money wasn't the same in the other job. But they didn't fire me, just left that one contract. But he was so happy about that, and he was gloating and happy and all that. It's the same kind of a mindset. It's like something bad happened to you, and you're Mr. Goody Two-Shoes at one point in time, blah, blah, whatever. And that was the mindset Eliphaz came with. So was he really coming as a compassionate friend? No. He's like, homeboy got his just desserts, man. Ha ha. That's kind of what you hear coming out of this. And so when you think, wait a second, is that a godly thing to do and say? And the easy answer is no. Not even close. So don't worry. He has another chapter of blabbering on to old Job here. Let's look to Job chapter 5 and verse 1. It says, call now. Is there anyone who will answer you? To which of the holy ones will you turn? Surely vexation kills the fool, and jealousy slays the simple. I have seen the fool taking root, but suddenly I cursed his dwelling. His children are far from safety. They are crushed in the gate, and there is no one to deliver them. The hungry eat his harvest, and he takes it even out of the thorns, and the thirsty pant after his wealth. For affliction does not come from the dust, nor does trouble sprout from the ground, but man is born to trouble as the sparks fly upward. This guy's just trashing old poor Job. Does that sound like a friend to you? Like with friends like that, man, I ain't need none of these idiots, right? This guy is not somebody I want to have around. But that's okay. Eliphaz is holy. Did you know that? He's so amazing. He's so wonderful. Don't hate Eliphaz. Let's kind of, but, it's part of the process, man. I want you to think about this. In your lowest time, you'll have friends who come and make your time even lower. They do that. It's not a gift from God. In fact, you'll find that God tells them, don't listen to these people. Why don't we prepare ourselves today that when we're in the lowest of lows and things are gone bad and we have the advisors come and to talk to us, it could be, it could be siblings, it could be spouses, it could be just simply friends. But when they come to talk, just remember, God, you have this. Please shut the mouth of this knucklehead, right? Absolutely just hush them. Eliphaz, though, sees himself differently. Eliphaz feels like he's pretty okay. He's pretty all right. He feels self-righteous, if you will. Look now in verse 8. He says, as for me, I would seek God, and to God would I commit my cause, who does great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number. He gives rain on the earth and sends waters on the fields. He sets on high those who are lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. He frustrates the devices of the crafty so that their hands achieve no success. He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are brought to a quick end. They meet with darkness in the daytime and grope at noonday as in the night. But he saves the needy from the sword of their mouth and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor have hope. And injustice shuts her mouth. Behold, blessed is the one whom God reproves. Therefore despise not the discipline of the Almighty. Are you saying he's unstable? Do what? He's a jerk? Kind of like, what's wrong with this dude? Why would you even talk to someone like that? I mean, I've got that question. Phew. Again, with friends like this, yeah, you don't even need enemies, man. This guy is enough for everybody. But he throws all these things, these thoughts, and puts them in there. The indication that he gives is, you know what, I'm doing pretty good. And you know what, God treats people like me okay. I don't know because we're not given the history of it, but what has happened to him in the past that Job has, with love and compassion, handled and dealt with them? It's hard to say. Maybe Job said something that crossed his path a little bit, and he was like, boy, I'm waiting for my turn. We don't know. But the audacity and the arrogance of this guy to say, God loves me. I remember seeing a bumper sticker years ago, and I thought it was funny, and I mentioned it a few times, and then I realized that's a hateful bumper sticker. It's humorous only in that it's a sick, twisted humor. And so sometimes that old man of me comes back and is like, that's really funny. So you have to kind of suppress that. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just got to suppress that thought. But the bumper sticker said, God loves you, but he loves me more. Isn't that basically the mindset of what's happening from Eliphaz right now? Yeah, you might be doing okay with God, but you know what? If you're doing it right, if you're living holy like me, now we're talking. Because God ain't going to treat you bad if you're me. From his perspective, let's think about this for a second. From the perspective of Eliphaz, has God treated him better than Job? Yeah. Yeah. Huh? Well, that's a good point. So she's saying that he's jealous, right? Maybe so, and I won't take that away from there. But no one recorded at this time has gone through anything like what Job has gone through. Eliphaz has probably had some pretty bad things happen. No doubt about it. He's probably had some, oh man, that's a mess. And oh man, how am I going to get through this? But they're looking at this and he lost his kids, he lost his cows, he lost everything, man. He don't even have the moped's gone. I mean, everything's gone. He's got his wife, but you know, that's not working out real well because she's yelling at him too. I mean, come on. From a person or from a human perspective, maybe, just maybe it is that he would say, well, you know what, this dude's had it worse than me. And so obviously you got to serve God like I am because I'm holy. Was he jealous? I think that's a fair assessment. Because if you look at somebody walking with God, or somebody, let me rephrase this because this is not going to apply to everyone. Of course you guys, because you're holy, but not everybody else. If you see somebody successfully functioning in any capacity, and you say, but I want to be that successful person in that capacity, then there's a jealousy, right? There's jealousy amongst pastors, strangely enough. I don't have it anymore, but I had it at the beginning because it's like, how come our church isn't growing to like 500 people, you know? Because it's a Calvary Chapel. They should just grow. And, right? You said, did you say, right? They should grow? What's wrong with you? Anyways. You know how disheartening it was for the first 9 years? Last couple of years, we finally, because, well, before COVID hit, we started moving, and then it faltered out and fell apart. And then just recently, in the last year or two, we can really see the ramp up again. But you know how hard it is to come in church every Sunday morning, every Wednesday night, when it's like, I don't even know if we're going to have that many people here this time. COVID was a gut killer to me. Coming, there was a couple times, only like twice or so, and of course nobody knew what was going on, so I don't blame anybody. It was the situation and the time. But there were a couple times when I came in here, made sure everything was recording, had a camera sitting here, and I'm the only person in the building. Ain't nobody else here. Zero. You know how much of a gut punch that is? And you look at a church down the road, and like the ones in California where they can't even they're not legally allowed to bring people, and these people are flooding the place and just packed in tight. You don't think there's some jealousy on that one? 100%. Because it's like, what am I doing wrong? And you start self-examining and all these things. And so, yeah, there's going to be some jealousy that jumps into there, and you're like, wow, man, what's going on? And it's like, you know what? I had to learn something, and a good friend of mine, Bungie Garrett, said this a long time ago, and it's like, he could say it, and you could say 100 things to somebody, but they're not going to listen to you, because why would you listen to somebody? But he said, little church pastor, he goes, don't ever discount the fact that there's just a handful of people in there. He goes, those are the people God gave you to minister to. For those hard times through the ministry when it was really, really sucking wind, I had to hold on to the things that he said to me and the wisdom that he gave me. And so he has a high respect in my world because of, just that, we focus on ourselves, and probably Eliphaz did some of that too, right? With that self, you should call it jealousy. But we tend to focus on ourselves when the mission is for God. We tend to be, poor me or whatever like that. How can I do this better? You can't. Be faithful to God. Study His Word. That's what I had to learn. I had to learn that before we could really get doing too much with this church. And thankfully, some of you stuck with us from the very beginning, and I'm sure there were some really rough days for you all too. It's part of it. And, it's just like, am I really serving God? Well, I can tell you in hindsight, what are we, 11 years in now? 11, 12 years in to this church? I can tell you now I definitely have been. And I could have told you that years ago. But even when you know that stuff and you like come in on a Sunday morning and like, it's you. I remember whenever Hal was here and he told me, because they shut down and we took over their stuff, those of you who don't know Hal. And I remember him saying, he goes, it was tough because some mornings it was just me. The only reason it was just me for us was because of COVID and because, people were nervous, and rightfully so, because nobody knew what was going on. But for him, there was no outbreak of anything. There was just people stopped coming. A guy I know in Miller Grove, we talked years ago, and he's like, he kind of encouraged me too. He said, if I have one person in my church, I'll preach that one person till God brings somebody else or takes him out. That's what I got. And that's what he did. I haven't talked to him in a while to see how that's going now, but that's kind of the mindset. We don't know what God is doing in the lives of us most of the time, or even others. We have no clue. And so Eliphaz has zero clue too. But he keeps just jabbing and jabbing and jabbing. So let's jab away a little bit further. Look in verse 18. For he wounds, but he binds up. Now he's given the holiness of that, like if you were like me. He shatters, but his hands heal. He will deliver you from 6 troubles. In 7 no evil shall touch you. In famine he will redeem you from death. In war from the power of the sword. You shall be hidden from the lash of the tongue, and shall not fear destruction when it comes. At destruction and famine you shall laugh, shall not fear the beasts of the earth. For you shall be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with you. You shall know that your tent is at peace, and you shall inspect your fold for his fold and miss nothing. You shall know also that your offspring shall be many, and your descendants as the grass of the earth. You shall come to your grave in ripe old age, like a sheaf gathered up in its season. Behold, this we have searched out. It is true. Hear and know it for your good. This guy's Mr. Wisdom, isn't he? He's Mr. Perfect. Can't you hear him singing Hallelujah Me? Now let me ask you a question. Let's put you back in the position of being Job for just a minute. Here you are, everything's gone bad, and this guy just starts dogging you like, man, I've helped you out of so many problems, you know? And that's what you're thinking at first, I'm imagining. This is our holy imagination, right? Man, I've helped you out of this sticky spot. I just don't get it. And then they have the nerve to just like, and look how holy and wonderful I am, and you're garbage. Come on, man. I mean, wow. The audacity of such a statement, or the way that he's going on. No, they say don't kick a man when he's down, and there's arguments that that's the best time to kick someone. And if you're really trying to just destroy them to the lowest level, then that is definitely the time to kick them. And so what we find is Eliphaz has kicked Job when he was super down. But now Job responds. For the next 2 chapters, Job responds. Let's begin with the first response here. In verse 1 it says, Then Job answered and said, Oh, that my vexation were weighed and all my calamity laid in the balances. For then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea, therefore my words have been rash. Does Job feel crushed? Absolutely. I want to throw something out at you guys, and you're going to be like, I don't know, John. You'll find somebody who is living life and doing whatever, and they have no regard for a lot of stuff. They're kind of on their own little aim and their own trajectory and all that stuff. And like, well, why can't you just serve God? Why can't you follow along with Jesus and begin to serve God? Why can't you just do that? And the reason they cannot do this is because they first must be humbled. Job's going to serve God in a mighty and an impressive way. But before he does, he will be humbled. You know, the easy part about being at the lowest part of your life is the only way you can look is up. Like, it can only get better from here. Have we ever said that to ourselves? Oh, yeah. It can only get better from here. Then somebody like, wait a second. I didn't think that would happen. You know, well, it can only get better from here. Oh, wow, it got worse. And you're like, is this at the bottom yet? Are we there yet? And that's when God brings you back up. I have been to the bottom a few times, and it's never been fun. I mean, it's just part of it, man. It's part of serving God. Thinking, I got this all figured out. I mean, we're going to be good. Everything's going to be amazing and perfect. But the reality is serving God can sometimes be pretty bummer, man. It can be pretty bad.